scientists will even say this objectively, that we were made to worship, okay? And we are value-based creatures, meaning every choice we make is based off of something we feel is more valuable than the other choices. Through action, you worship, okay? So you can either choose to worship something intentionally or unintentionally, and it typically is, and Thomas Aquinas very accurately labeled them as either power, honor, pleasure. Oftentimes, drug addicts are worshiping pleasure, right? They want to feel good. That becomes their God. Now, I'm a Christian now, and what is taught is that you were made to turn towards God, and if you turn away, you will try to fill that with something other than God, and you will feel thirsty. You will never get what you think you're going to get because it is less than. You want money? Go after it, and you'll never get satisfied. You want pleasure? Go after it. You'll never be satisfied. Power? You'll never be satisfied. Honor, which now we could call fame, you'll never be satisfied because it's trying to fill something that is meant to be filled with God. The problem comes from putting them in the wrong, prioritizing the wrong way. Okay, so feeling good is not a bad thing, but it becomes bad when feeling good goes above, let's say, your family, right? Being fit is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. But when it goes above going to work and supporting your family, or when it goes above, being there for your kids, well, now it's not so good. So I think the key with what you're saying is you look at your list of priorities, and for me, it's like God, family, work, community, that type of stuff. I look at that and I go, is my fitness helping these things, or am I putting it above these? When I start to put it above those things is when it becomes a problem. And I just got to do that semi-regularly to check in, because it can very easily sneak its way up to the top.
All right, here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
And we have a gentleman here by the name of Sal Di Stefano. Sal, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. Great to be here.
Awesome to have you on. First things first, thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use. And thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message, right, Ben?
Yes, sir. It's a fact.
What'd you think of that intro?
That was amazing.
Pretty good, right?
I do my intros after the podcast. You know what I mean? I record it and then I do it afterwards. Yeah. I don't want to mess up.
Yeah.
That was fire.
370 episodes now.
That's great.
So, but you guys are what, at 2,700?
Yeah, dude.
And you still forget and screw it up?
Well, usually I don't, but we take the, all joking aside, we took the the fitness approach. Like, we suck at this. Let's just practice as much as possible.
Yeah.
So now we're okay,
How did you guys, and there is going to be some self-serving questions from myself, because I've been listening to you guys for probably every bit of 6, maybe 7 years. And I haven't listened to every single episode, but I've been listening to you for a long time. And how did you guys start?
Yeah.
Like, what was that? Because I know you've come together, the three of you and Doug, and now you have a great team. But what was the backstory on it, and how did you guys come together to put this together?
Yeah, looking back, it was quite serendipitous. All of us, well, not all of us. So I worked in fitness since the age of 18. So 1997 is when I started working in gyms, and Adam and Justin also worked in fitness at young ages. And Adam and Justin worked together, but I never had worked with those two before. In fact, I'd never met either one of them. I met Adam once or twice at big fitness convention type things, but nothing like where we would talk and hang out. And so we just kind of did our own separate things. Doug was not in the fitness space. Towards the back half of my career, I owned a wellness studio. So I'll say back half, but I was 23 when I became an entrepreneur, opened up my own facility. Doug actually hired me much later. We became close friends, and he approached me and said, if you ever want to do anything online, actually the actual thing he said, you remind me of Tony Robbins, which is, that was a huge compliment.
Yeah.
And he said, if you ever want to sell anything online, let me know. I have some experience with online marketing. And I said, wow, that's okay. And I thought about it and kind of went away. And a week later, I was up late reading a study from the New England Journal of Medicine. So I tend to be a bit obsessive with things. And
I told you.
Yeah.
I was like, Ben, if you have any supplement questions, you better ask them.
I just go off. And so I was up till, 2:30 in the morning, and there was a study that came up. And make a long story short, it inspired me to create MAPS Anabolic, which is the first workout program that we sell now through MindPump. I came up with that, brought it to Doug. Doug's like, let's put this together. We'll sell it online. So we started creating like video content, and it felt very natural to me, which was really interesting. I never did anything like that before, but I'm in front of a camera and I'm talking about this program, and it felt great. And at that time, up until that point, I had heard of Adam's name mentioned to me by many friends. People will come up to me and say, "Oh, you got to work with Adam Schafer." And I'd had like at least five people tell me that. I was like, "Who's this guy, Adam Schafer?" By the way, the same thing was happening to him at that same time. We talk about this now, but whatever. Never really did anything with it. Well, we come out with this digital program, and we did this sales video. And on social media, I had seen Adam on there, and him and I were talking about just different things at the time through social media, just a few comments back and forth. And I said, hey, I'd love your opinion on something I put together. I know you've done really well in the fitness space. A lot of people have said that you're pretty dynamic. I'd love your honest opinion. I sent him the sales video. He calls me up, and he goes, we should meet. We should all sit down and meet together. So I met up with Adam and Justin. And it was a 4-hour conversation. You meet somebody and it's just like right away, like there's something here. And we all decided we need to do something together. And I said, Doug, who is my business partner with MAPS, he's got a lot of equipment at home just as a hobby. I think we should do a podcast because it's long form. There's very low barrier to entry. We don't have to sell anything or behold to any sponsors. And long form is really the best way to communicate what we want to talk about. And everybody's like, let's do it. That's it. That's how we started the podcast. And we all had jobs. We all were, had our careers. And we'd meet up Monday nights at 5 or 6 p.m. and we'd record podcasts till midnight. And we did that for about a year until we turned on the monetization and realized we have a business. And then I sold my gym and everybody went, we all went full bore MindPump. But that was it. Looking back, it was definitely serendipitous, for sure. What you heard on the podcast then, you still hear this now, but what you heard then was decades of experience training everyday people. We were not podcasters. None of us had any media experience. So we weren't good in that sense. But when you train and work with people for decades, you learn how to communicate your craft very well. And as trainers, we really cared about helping people. And so you learn how to communicate fat loss, muscle gain, health, wellness. You learn how to communicate it in ways that actually works for the average person through trial and error. You do this for long enough, you're like, that's not working, that's not working, that's not working. This is what works. I see now. I got to communicate it this way. So that's what you heard on the podcast, and it resonated, and the show took off pretty quickly from there.
I love that you mentioned, because I've heard you talk about this before, the way you communicate it, and it's like the same along the same lines of what we do in addiction. I can hand you a book on addiction, but it's that interaction you have with people for us now, we've been working in the field for over a decade, so same kind of thing. Like, it's the way you communicate, it's the way you interact with people, share your experience, and really make it tangible for them.
Yes.
And the other thing that really jumped out to me about what you're talking about is just so cool that, like, when you get involved with like a culture, organically, like it sounds like you found your tribe. Mm-hmm. Like, you guys to me seem like a family on MindPump, and the way you work together, just this little bit of interaction, the way that you talk about everyone you work with. It's like within the recovery culture, the fitness culture, like we're always encouraging our clients to like find your tribe, find your people, because you never know where that's going to bring you. And ironically, Tom and I were talking about that yesterday, like kind of how we have gotten where we've gotten, and never expected to have the opportunities that we have, but just kind of like organically follow your heart and do what you enjoy and be good to people, man, and things happen.
Well, what's interesting is that what you guys do and what we do, there's a lot of crossover. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of crossover. The thing that I love most about fitness, and I've talked about this many times, it's a very powerful vehicle for personal growth. All right, period, end of story. But what makes it so powerful is it's completely unassuming. A lot of people don't enter fitness thinking, I'm going to do this personal growth journey. They're like, I just want to look better. And I want abs. I want to lose weight. I want to look hot or whatever, right? Oftentimes they enter it for the wrong reasons. I don't like myself. I hate myself. I'm gross, whatever. But they enter into a very powerful vehicle for personal growth, not even knowing that that's what they're doing. And then if they stick to it long enough, and that's what we try to do, is try to really communicate to people in ways that effectively gets them to kind of move with it and stick with it, because so many people drop off. Like, here's the right way to do it. Here's the right approach. Here's the why that'll keep you going. And then when you do it the right way and you stick to it long enough, oh my gosh, it's like, it leads to just personal growth in every area. You find yourself understanding that you'll never be perfect. That's actually something you have to learn if you pursue this long enough. You accept your faults. You got to figure that out. You work out. I remember as a kid working out, realizing I'm never going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. But I kept going. Like, what an amazing lesson. I remember at the time being sad about it, but then I kept going, right? What a great lesson. You develop a relationship with struggle and pain through fitness. A lot of people don't realize that. I remember when that dawned on me. I was training a woman. I've told this story on the podcast many times. She was doing a tricep press down with the rope. And any trainers watching this have had this experience. I remember she never worked out, right? So she's totally new to it. Not an athlete, never did anything like that. And she's doing a few reps, and then she lets go of the rope, right?
Oh, no.
Weight slams.
Yeah.
And I go, oh, what's the matter? She goes, I'm hurt. I said, oh, okay, what happened? So I check her out, and she's explaining what she's feeling. I'm like, oh, that's your triceps burning. I say, yeah, that's you're supposed to feel. That's normal. And then I thought about that. And I said, people who've been working out for a long time don't feel any less pain than the beginner. In fact, I'll argue quite strongly that people who've been working out for a long time feel way more pain. We push ourselves harder. We train at a much higher intensity, but yet we don't let go of the rope. We don't drop the weight. We don't run away. You develop a relationship with pain where you start to recognize the value in the struggle. Now, you can't tell me that doesn't have tremendous carryover to the rest of your life, right? Like think about how that applies. But you don't realize that, right? So you're just going through fitness. It reminds me of Karate Kid, where Mr. Miyagi's teaching Danny to wax on, wax off. Doesn't even realize he's learning how to block punches and kicks. He's just, without realizing, he's learning karate. And then of course Mr. Miyagi, when he gets frustrated, I don't want to wash cars anymore.
Dude, it is so funny you just brought that up. I used to talk about that same analogy all the time, the Karate Kid, when I speak in meetings. People would always tease me about it.
It's exactly what happens. You don't realize that you're growing and learning and moving towards becoming a better person. And the reason why fitness is so powerful, it's the only, think about this right now, because the modern world is, it is not organized at all in a way to make us healthy. In fact, it's the opposite. Okay? If you follow the rules of the way you're supposed to live, you will be unhealthy, both mentally, spiritually, and physically. That's just the way it's designed. And so there is no personal growth vehicle that's really sold to you effectively. It's almost like, yeah, you can do this, or you know what, in fact, don't do this, is oftentimes what they'll tell you. But fitness is still sold. Now they sell it the wrong way, look sexy, look hot, this, that, and the other, attract people, but it's still being sold. So what they don't realize, and this is what we hope to do, is they're bringing people in by selling it the wrong way, and hopefully we can get in their ears, teach them how to do it the right way, and now you're on this incredible vehicle for personal growth. And the crossover with you guys is just, a significant percentage of my clients were recovering addicts who use fitness as significant. You talk to any trainer who's been doing this a long time, and they'll tell you, oh yeah, people quitting whatever, and they move to fitness as a way to kind of help themselves out.
Share that story with so I got here yesterday afternoon, and Ben got here shortly after I did, and he was checking in at the front desk. Tell him the story about the lady.
Yeah, so I'm checking in at the front desk yesterday morning, and right in front of me, I see a lady, obviously in shape. I'm like, hey, you're here for NCI? She's like, what gave it away, the muscles? I'm like, yeah, pretty much. But, I'm kind of explaining to her what we're here doing. And, I explained like, hey, I went down a pretty dark path. That's how we're involved with Rock Recovery Center at XYZ. And she's like, oh, meth used to be my best friend. And, you know, you look at her now and you would never think that. It's wild. But I've heard too that there's studies on like the correlation between especially opiate addicts, because exercise releases endorphins, and same with heroin, opiates, Oxycontin, Vicodin, along the same lines. So I've also always wondered too if athletes are more prone to addiction to opiates, for instance. There's a lot of correlation there.
There is, and I think, you know, addiction can take many different forms. Obviously, I always make the argument the most abused substance in modern society is food, right?
Yeah.
People definitely treat food like a drug, and that's very, very common. So there's definitely a lot of crossover. The challenge is with fitness, can we communicate it in the way that makes it a true value? Can we teach people how to really use this tool? Because if you use this tool the wrong way, it just becomes another drug. It becomes another way to abuse yourself. Maybe a better way than other ways, but I've seen some pretty terrible abuse through fitness.
Can I ask you to elaborate on something I heard you talk about previously? You were saying the healthy way to do it, and I forget exactly what you said, but when you're in the gym, when you're working out, making sure you're in your, what'd you say, in your body, in your mind. Like, how'd you explain that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can use exercise as a way to distract yourself, as a way to escape, okay? Which not necessarily the best relationship you want to have with exercise, because then it can quickly become a drug. It could be a way to escape personal challenges, pain, trauma. I got to run away from this. And so what you see is just overtraining, tons of running, typically beating the shit out of yourself because it feels cathartic to beat yourself up, or at the very least, I'm distracted by the pain and suffering that I'm going through with this workout. Working in is when you work out and you actually feel what you're supposed to feel. In fact, exercise, if you guys are familiar with somatic therapies, right, which teach you how to feel what's going on in your body, right? Because a lot of times people, especially with trauma, disassociate, and they have dissociative type issues. Exercising and feeling what you're supposed to feel. I feel my quads. I feel the burn. I feel my body moving. I feel what's happening. I feel I'm tired or energized or whatever. That helps move you towards allowing yourself to feel kind of what's going on. So you can use fitness as a way to run away, or you can use fitness as a way to bolster and strengthen yourself, and maybe even run towards what the issue is. I think it's a tool. I don't think it's the tool, but it's definitely a very powerful tool.
You definitely have to be multifaceted, because I'll find myself doing that. Like if I'm having a painful day, I'm like run into the gym to get out of it. At the same time, I'll work out on good days. But kind of what we try to teach our clients is that if you're constantly running to the gym and you have nothing else in your toolbox, you're probably going down a bad road. Yeah,
well, it starts with the why. Like, why am I doing this? If you and you got to remind yourself of this, like, why am I in the gym right now? Is it because I want bigger biceps? Is it because I feel inadequate? I'm unattractive. I'm too skinny. That was me as a kid. Too fat. Or this is where I'll argue this is the right path. I'm doing this because I'm somebody that deserves to be cared for. I want to care for myself. How do I take care of myself right now so I can show up? So I can show up, be a good father, good husband, good human, or just because I deserve to be cared for. And if you approach it like that, and that's not perfect, you're going to struggle with that. I still do. But if you ask yourself that constantly and you're honest with yourself, then you're more likely to use fitness in the right way. You're more likely to find the balance that you need to find with fitness so that it can actually rejuvenate you rather than consistently break you down. One little hack with that, by the way, is to speak of yourself in the third person. That tends to help. So like instead of saying, I'm here because I deserve to be cared for, you say, I'm here because Sal deserves to be cared for. And what you find is you start to, it becomes a little bit more effective and powerful. But you approach it that way, and that's the path to sustainability, balance.
We covered a lot there, but one of the things that I wanted to touch on that you talked about, I forget exactly how you put it, but like Ben and I went to the gym this morning, and Ben is training for a bodybuilding show on the, what is it? 420, ironically.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I can see, and I've had a front row seat to like the pain that he's been putting himself through training for this bodybuilding show. And when I say training for this, I mean, it goes back a year plus, and the dieting and the exercise and the low calories and stuff. And he's right at the end of the road here. And we were at the gym this morning, and and this is going to probably sound funny to you guys, but at this gym, they had like a posing room, and he's in there doing his pose, and I don't have a clue what any of this stuff is like. And I go to the bathroom because I don't care to stand there and watch him in his underwear pose. And I come back, and I didn't tell this to you, but you could see it in his face, like the agony and the everything. And he was like, "That was 3 minutes of posing." And I'm like, "What was so hard about that? You're just standing in the mirror."
That's one of the hardest things to do.
And so, but how I kind of want to tie that in is that there's a goal at the end. And how you were saying, like with the lady, she was feeling pain in her tricep and stuff. I think that having some sort of goal tied towards whatever it is that you're doing can help you endure that pain.
Yeah.
Right. And so in his instance, he's training for a bodybuilding show, going through everything that you have to go through for that, and willing to endure a bunch of pain in order to get there. And when you hit that goal, it makes it so much more rewarding. Yeah. Because now you're like, I see why I went through all that.
Yeah. You're touching on some serious wisdom here. Okay. So this is echoed by every old spiritual practice, and you'll see this in religions that have been practiced for thousands of years. So that there's some wisdom here, and that's what you're talking about, is sacrifice. Yeah. And there's different levels of sacrifice. Initial level of sacrifice is sacrificing the present me for the future me. So that's what you're talking about with goals. Okay, so I'm going to sacrifice the present me. I'm going to feel tired, or it's going to hurt. I'm not going to eat that piece of cake or whatever, because there's this future me that I'm going to serve, and that's going to be worth worth all of this sacrifice. This bodybuilding competition, a marathon, healthier body, whatever it may be. There's another level though, which is when you find the joy in the play in the sacrifice, and the present and the future now are together. And what that looks like, and if you've been working out for a long time, and you know this because you'll touch on this often, and eventually this is where you'll end up, especially as you get older and have to and start to accept the realities of Father Time. Okay, which is, I do this for the sake of doing it. I just enjoy doing this. And you find this with 60, 70-year-old, people in the gym who've been working out for years and years and years. They don't have a goal. They don't care about a goal. Why do they do it? They love doing it. So it's no longer a sacrifice of the present for the future. Present and the future now work together, and it's just simply the joy of doing the thing. And that's the level that you reach when you practice this long enough, and you stay with the discipline long enough. But initially, these steps of goals are very important, because when you're pulling back that bow, where do I shoot this arrow? And you need a target, and that helps quite a bit. The only caveat I would say is, don't fall in love with or worship or idolize what you think it's going to feel like when you hit that goal, because you will be let down.
Right.
When you hit that goal, I'm going to lose 100 pounds, and then life's going to be amazing. Life's going to be perfect. Everything's going to be great. Like it is going to be better. But if you idolize it, you will be let down, and that often gets people to stop. So just remember that.
There's so much there in terms of, even that is an example of that. Like, you look at all the celebrities that have made all the money in the world.
Right.
And, it's easy for us to think, if I make $100 million, then everything's going to be great. And then you get there. And,
you're wrong.
Anthony Bourdain and all that, we can name them. But there's so much with that in terms of, like, the sobriety aspect of it. If I look, and I know Ben can relate to this too, if I reflect on all my years of sobriety now, coming up on 14 years clean and sober.
Awesome.
in the very beginning, I was in the mindset of, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And there was so much sacrifice of being with my family, sacrifice of being with my friends, or whom I thought were my friends at the time. Turns out they were just drinking buddies. Sacrifice of a job that I was good at, and like I was making money, I was comfortable. And I get on a one-way flight to Florida. I'm originally from Pittsburgh area, and I'm by myself. I don't know anybody. I know nothing. All I know is that I'm going into a detox facility, and then I'm on a journey of 45 days of treatment, and that's all I knew. But slowly things I started to understand, and I started to enjoy the journey that I was on. So I completed the 45 days, and originally I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go back to Pennsylvania and everything's going to be fine. Luckily, my dad was like, no, you're not. You're going down to West Palm Beach, because I went to treatment in Jacksonville, and then him and my therapist concocted this plan to put me into West Palm. And then I continued my treatment, and I continued to build friends, and I continued to meet people that were on the same journey as me. And I started to understand that, like, all I was using alcohol for was to get me outside of myself and to make me be able to cope with these areas in my life that I wasn't comfortable in. And the journey started turning, and then it went from, I can't imagine myself not drinking again. I can't imagine myself not, having sex with random girls. I can't imagine myself, all these things, to, I can't imagine myself going back to that. And that, I think, is exactly what you were talking about. Like, it just becomes easy. So like when people get to that point, I met a guy just before we came down here. He brought his son in to meet with us. His son's alcoholic. And I asked the dad, I'm like, how old are you? He's like, I'm 69. I'm like, you are in damn good shape. He's like, I exercise every day. I'm like, what do you do? He's like, I do whatever. I play basketball. I strength train. I run. I do this. I do that. He's like, I love it. It's what I enjoy, and just another example of like the journey that you're on. Getting to that point is really a freeing thing, and it ties directly to sobriety.
Yeah, I would use the word. You use the word easy, which I think is accurate. But for somebody listening right now who's not there,
right?
I would say your desires change. So your desire to distract or overeat or get high becomes less powerful than your desire to be healthy, connect to others, and to grow. And that's a real thing. So the hope here for somebody listening right now is not that you're going to white knuckle this for the rest of your life. The truth is, it's going to feel like that. And then it's going to feel like, I actually want to move in this other direction. I actually want to do the quote unquote, right thing. And that's what starts to change. And what comes out of that, and I know you've experienced this, isn't happiness, but rather joy. And joy is a little different. And this is something I've recently learned, that, you can feel joy and be tired. You can feel joy and be sick. You can feel joy and be sad. It's very different than happy. Happiness is that feeling that everybody seeks all the time. But joy, that's a completely different feeling. And you can feel joyful at a funeral. You can feel joyful and be sick in bed. And this is what you end up feeling when you start to move in the right direction. Once you feel that feeling, if you really connect to it, you start to desire to do the right thing over the wrong thing. And that's what makes it, as you said, easy or easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was curious, on a recent episode, you were talking about like your own personal journey. I think the episode was something along the lines of 7 healthy things people do or whatever. But you were talking about how there was a point in a time in your life where you were like obsessed with being in the gym. You would sacrifice relationships, the quality of relationships. Like, and you were talking about the why earlier, asking the why. Like, what was your why? What got you, motivated you to change that mindset?
I was terribly insecure. And if we're going to go deeper, I felt inadequate. I felt like I needed to earn I needed to be a certain way in order for people to like or respect me. And this goes back to my relationship with my father. He's a great man, okay? He grew up very hard, very, very tough, very poor. And he didn't know how to connect. His father had really no connection to him other than being extremely authoritative. So he tried to connect with me through the things that he knew how to do. My dad was very athletic, and I was not. I was into reading. And so I took that as like, I got to be a particular way so that my dad will like me type of deal. And I grew up and I was a skinny kid. Now, looking back, I wasn't as skinny as I thought I was, but that's how insecurities work, right? So that's what initially got me into working out. And then I got obsessed with it. I love that this was something that I could do to change this thing about myself that I didn't like. Now, my saving grace was that I became a trainer, because training other people, thank God, I really do love people. I really do care about people. So it was always this mirror, right? So I could do the wrong things on myself. I could abuse my body. I could take, designer steroids. I could do all these other things to myself, but I would never recommend my clients do any of that stuff. And so I was this great trainer to my clients, meanwhile abusing my own body. But I have that constant mirror and reflection, which, really, it always pulled to me, because there was a part of me that always felt like a hypocrite, right? There was a part of me that's like, I'm telling my client, don't do this thing, but I do that thing. And so every day was like, I could only ignore it for so long. And what it did is it really started to push me to figure my own stuff out. My own dysfunctional relationship with fitness and diet and all that. I mean, as a kid, you wouldn't believe that. I mean, you might, because I know you bodybuild, and that space is extreme. But I mean, I'd set my alarm to wake up at 3 a.m. so I could take a weight gain shake. I'd blend chicken breasts and tuna fish, in a blender so I could just pound it down. I'd work out like crazy. I'd, save up my money so I could buy whatever weird supplement was out there. It wasn't good. But because I cared about my clients, again, I had that constant reflection. And then when I really figured out how to communicate this in ways that got people to be sustainable, it was hard not to hear my own words coming out of my mouth. Now, I'd be lying if I said I didn't still struggle with some of those things. It's just, and this is the crazy part, you can be quite blind to some of your own tendencies. I've come a long way, but there's definitely some things I'm blind to. So in fact, this actually happened recently. I never take time off from the gym. Now, I've done it and structured in a way so it doesn't prevent me from doing things with my kids and my family. That's definitely more important to me. But I figured out a way to, like, I do it first thing in the morning, and I'll make sure I wake up at 5 a.m. or wake up at 4 if I have to, or whatever, to make it happen type of deal. Just never take time off. Well, it was was it last week? We had family visiting, and my wife says, "Hey, would you mind working out in the garage, because I really don't want you to leave in the morning. I got to get the kids up, and it's going to be whatever. I got my niece and nephew here from out of town." And I could feel like the irritation inside me. So I'm like, what if I leave earlier and go to the gym? What if I wake up earlier and go to the gym and then come home earlier?
What if I just don't go to bed?
Yeah. What time do you need me back, right? Yeah. So she's kind of like, I'd really just like you to stay type of deal. And I said, yeah, but just give me a time. Give me a time to come home, and then I'll be home for that time, whatever. She's like, you know what? She gives me grace. Just go do your workout. And I sat there, with it. By the way, if your wife ever says, it's fine, it's probably not fine.
Yeah, I'm thinking I know where this is like.
Yeah, right. So I'm sitting there, I'm at work, and I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. And I'm like, I could work out in there. I don't like working out in my garage because I got to be quiet. The kids are upstairs. I got to do this like totally different workout than I normally would do. Like, I'll just work out at home. And I thought to myself, I'm like, maybe I should just take the rest of the week off. Oh, and I felt this pull inside of me that's like, no, you can't do that, And I said, oh, shit, that means I probably should. So I sent this long text to my wife, and I said, you know what, honey? I think I'm going to take that time off precisely because I really don't want to. It was 3 days off, okay? It's 3 days off of the gym. Like, people watching right now are like, what's the big deal? Like, to me, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
So I took them off. They didn't work out at all. And, by the way, here's some reinforcement that it was the right thing to do. I come back to work out the next week stronger. Anybody who overtrains, you take some time off.
I was just going to say that. I hear you guys preaching this all the time.
And I hear my own voice talking to other people. you know? So I took the time off. And it's still a bit of a struggle for me because it's my, it's a relationship that could easily go. But again, my saving grace with this is that I talk to people about it. So it's hard not to be like, I know what I'll tell somebody else. Maybe I should listen to myself,
Well, it's you become your own kind of barometer, your own thermostat or something.
Well, I would imagine what you guys do. I'd love to ask you guys that. I'd imagine one of the best things you could do when you're in recovery is help other people in recovery for the same reason that I realized through training other people.
Yeah, so I was just going to comment on that actually. That as much it correlates here with what you're sharing, it's absolutely wild because with the recovery space, for instance, we have to tell our clients, you have to put your recovery first because you've already lost everything or you're on the verge of losing your family, losing your house, all those consequences. So, and I don't personally like this saying, but I understand what they mean by it. But you have to be selfish in your recovery up front. And I struggle with that today. And it correlates with the gym too, because I'm doing the bodybuilding thing. So I'm telling the wife, I got to go walk 15,000 steps, but where I'm going with that is the family balance. We were talking about relationships getting into this, and I know for myself, I do really have to make the time for my recovery, and I don't believe that there's such thing as balance. It's just constant readjustment. Yeah, I find myself falling short in one area, and kind of like you were talking about, taking the week off, being able to take an inventory and check myself. Because at the end of the day, I'll just call it what it is. If I go back out and start drinking or drugging, it's all gone. I'm not stopping. I don't stop at one.
Yeah, I think if you really look at your because there's a lot of good things in life. I think the problem comes from putting them in prioritizing the wrong way. Okay, so feeling good is not a bad thing, but it becomes bad when feeling good goes above, let's say, your family, right? Being fit is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But when it goes above going to work and supporting your family, or when it goes above, being there for your kids, well, now it's not so good. So I think the key with what you're saying is you look at your list of priorities, and, for me, it's like God, family, work, community, that type of stuff. I look at that and I go, is my fitness helping these things, or am I putting it above these? When I start to put it above those things is when it becomes a problem. And I just got to do that semi-regularly to check in because it can very easily sneak its way up to the top.
So hang on, let me cover this real quick because I'll lose it. And I think you'll find this interesting. Within sobriety, there's a saying that anything you put ahead of your sobriety, you will lose. And so it kind of doesn't contradict what you're saying. I totally agree with what you're saying. But when you talk to sober people, especially, and I've had this conversation with Ben, and we're practically brothers. We're literally born same exact day, same year. Our birthday's this coming Sunday. We're both going to turn 40.
Happy birthday. That's weird, huh?
So anyways, I could say this and know that he'll be fine with it. There has been times where I've talked to Ben and I say, Ben, dude, you are going to, and you're not like this anymore, but bro, you're going to 5 meetings a week. You're meeting with a ton of sponsees, and how's your family life? And a lot of times with people in sobriety, they'll get and Ben didn't do this, but there are people that will say, anything I put ahead of my sobriety, I'm going to lose. Yeah. So it's they're willing to sacrifice the relationship with their wife and kids or husband and kids or whatever the case is for their sobriety, which I understand on a macro level.
I think we could flip that though. I think you could totally flip that. I think that what you're saying is my sobriety putting my family first? Not that I'm sacrificing my family for my sobriety, because without your sobriety, where's your family? Where's your work? So you are putting your family first, but the sobriety is required. But just like fitness. So here's the deal. Look, if you're so unhealthy that you can't get down on the floor and play with your kids, or you can't show up for your wife, well, you've now put your poor health in front of your family. That means you have to work out. You got to go take care of yourself. Yeah. That doesn't mean you've put your fitness above your family. It means your family's still at the top. So I don't think you're sacrificing your family for your sobriety. I think what people realize is, if I'm not sober,
I
can't be there for my family. I think that's probably the right way to think about it.
Hang on, because I like where this is going. And because I like the back and forth. Now, if you have a client, and let's just say you have a guy that he's new to you.
Yeah.
Maybe you've been training him for 6 months, and this is a complete hypothetical.
Sure.
Let's just say that it's a guy friend of yours. He's this unhealthy guy,
Yes.
but like maybe your wife and his wife are friends,
Okay.
right? And he hired you as his trainer. Starts off, 3 days a week, because I know kind of how you work with
Yeah.
people. If they have no experience, 1 to 2 days, we're going to stick there for a while. Let's fast forward those 6 months, and you notice that he's really getting into this, and he's not anywhere near as unhealthy as he was when he first started, but now he's like wanting to, go 4 days, 5 days, and your wife and his wife are communicating, and now you find out that like his wife is talking to your wife. Now your wife is coming to you, Sal. Hey, he's spending a lot of time at the gym, and he's not really spending much time with his wife and his kids anymore. Like, and that's what I mean with this is like, there's a threshold. I think in the beginning, totally understand. Like if you're new in sobriety, hit those meetings, build the network, so on and so forth. But when you get to that point, like me, if I went to my wife now and told her, hey, I'm going to start going to 5 meetings a week, one of two things would happen. One, she would think, well, I know this would happen. She'd think I'm heading to the bottle, and it would freak her out. Or she'd get super upset because like she knows that I don't really need that at this stage of my sobriety. So that's kind of what I was getting towards with that.
Yeah. So let's say I had somebody who had a heart attack, almost died. And now they're coming to me. They're like, "Listen, man, I'm 48 years old. Like, I need to do something about this." Like, and they're coming to the gym 2 days a week, right? And they say, "Hey, Sal, I know I'm supposed to come work out with you today, but I was thinking about going out to breakfast with my wife." Like, no, you need to come. You need to come to the gym. Like, let's work out. We just got on this. Like, let's do this, and this needs to be a priority for you right now. And I think your wife will understand. Now, if this is I got a client who's consistent and fit, and like, they're just doing great. And then they call me, hey, I'm going to go have breakfast with go enjoy it. It's not a big deal. So there is an individual component. Yeah. There's definitely an individual component and a check-in that you need to do with yourself through this process. I'm talking about, I tend to talk more about the fitness fanatics because that's what I kind of connect with, and they need to be talked to a little bit. Now, the average person needs a little kick in the butt sometimes, right? You got to get in there and make it happen. Type of deal. But those of us with obsessive tendencies, and I say those of us because I fall into that category, we tend to live on the edges, and so I got to constantly do a check-in for myself because it's a real slow, it's a nice slow veer off into extreme land for me. And once I'm in extreme land, it takes me a little while to be like, oh, time to back out and move out a little bit. And sometimes it takes me a little while to figure that out. Thankfully, I have a wife that will, cheerfully remind me.
I'd like to hear your insight on this. You asked me, you insinuated that like for us working with other addicts is great for our recovery. And you said you love working with people, you love people in general. Have you ever found yourself like overextending yourself for other people, not being able to say no, like overinvested in a certain client? Like,
that's a tough, here's the biggest challenge for a trainer, okay? Besides like, how do you build your business? How do you do this, that, and the other, those tangible things. The biggest challenge is this. Your clients' successes and failures, you need to own them all. You also need to be okay with the fact that they're going to fail often. So in other words, you can't kill yourself trying to make everything work because it's a hard journey. But you also have to have the mentality where if something's not working, you got to also say, okay, what am I doing either wrong, or what can I say or do differently that'll reach this person? That's a tough place to live. It's a tough place to live because, client shows up and, they're just they haven't made any positive changes with their diet, and it's been a year. It's really easy to just take that on and get mad, to to take it personally or to get crushed or, oh, they don't show up. I'm terrible. I'm a failure. You don't want to get caught up in that because that'll totally wear you down. I learned a lot of this. You want to know where I learned a lot of this? I had the blessing of working with a lot of surgeons at one point. My studio was down the street from a major hospital in the Bay Area in Los Gatos, Good Samaritan Hospital. And a lot of these doctors, brilliant, amazing people. And a lot of them worked in ER or were cancer doctors. And when they kind of ask them questions every time they come in, how was your day today? What'd you do? What'd you work on? Whatever. And I would hear stories. I remember one woman, she came in and she had the day before performed, I think it's called a Whipple procedure. It's a major surgery. I think it takes 8 hours to do. So you're in the operating room for a long time. Like, you don't drink water, because you can't leave. And she told me about this. And I'm like, what? Why'd you do this? She's like, well, she was just filled with cancer. And I said, well, what's the prognosis? She's like, it's probably not good. So how do you deal with that? Like, every day you deal with stuff like that. She's like, you have to take ownership, but you also can't let it destroy you. I thought, wow, okay. Like, I gotta, that's something trainers got to work on to a less degree, So that's one of the big challenges. I own this all, but I'm not going to put it on my back and let it crush me and weigh me down at the same time. It's a very difficult thing.
Yeah, we have a saying, we're not in the results business, we're in the business of showing up.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I might use that.
Yeah. And, I tell you who has a real hard time with that is therapists.
Yeah.
Oh, we have 3 therapists that work for us, and they are phenomenal. They're licensed mental health counselors. They're certified in EMDR. But the population that we work with, addiction in and of itself, most of the time is rooted in some sort of childhood trauma.
Totally.
And, the therapists and, our clients, they stay with us. My gosh, sometimes we're having to kick them out the nest, but on average, 4 to 5 months, so the therapists really get to know these clients, everything about them, so as much as they're willing to share. And, it's not 100% guarantee that they're going to stay sober. That's just the reality of it. But we've had so many conversations with our therapists that, they come into my office primarily because I'm upstairs, Ben's downstairs. So I'm up there with a therapist. I have, my office up there, and they'll come in and they're like, did you hear about so-and-so? And I'm like, yeah, I heard about it. And, oftentimes it is they overdosed and died. And tears, and it's like, I consider, for as long as Ben and I have been doing this, and this is sad to say, but you kind of get numb to it a little bit, because we're so used to hearing people passing away from overdoses that when I hear it, I'm like, that sucks. And it kind of goes, But
well, you got to cope yourself.
Yeah. They take it on.
Well, how do you not? Otherwise, the very work you do will create a trauma within you that'll take you away from what you're doing.
And they have their own therapists.
Yep.
Therapists have therapists, and it's. So let's transition a little bit. And we don't got a ton of time left. I know we got a busy day ahead of us, all of us. Just through listening, obviously, to MindPump, you seem to be, out of the 4 of you, the most experimental, I would say. And I've heard you talking about doing EMDR.
Yeah.
What was your experience with that?
Oh, it's pretty remarkable. So I see a therapist, and my wife is, and this is a credit to my wife, she's one of the most growth-minded, I honestly, I could say the most growth-minded person I've ever met in my entire life. Just very open to pursue personal growth in real ways. And so that's what I fell in love with her over. And so with her encouragement, I went and saw, and through our own challenges, I went and started meeting with a therapist. And EMDR was suggested to me as a way to help face the challenges or traumas that my mind or my body just wouldn't allow me to really look at. Okay, so I really had no experience with the EMDR. It was weird.
That's what I said when
it's weird, and I mean, I dove into the science a little bit and what the theory is behind it, but my experience was, it was interesting. Like, I mean, the first time I did it, I was able, and what's weird is I don't have any big T traumas, right? So none of the big stuff, but it's that little overtime type of stuff that that I experienced. But there were some events that I think impacted me a lot more than I realized. The challenge for me was I could talk about them. So before EMDR, you asked me, hey, do you have any, oh yeah, I had some body image issues, a couple things that happened. I remember this, that, and the other. But I started identifying with the story that I told and not the actual event. I stopped feeling. I didn't feel what I actually felt in that moment. I never felt that except for maybe that one time when I was there. So going through EMDR, they ask you a series of questions. They ask you to go deeper. Okay, well, let's focus on that. Let's focus on that. And so it's this like chain that starts to connect down to this like moment. And I felt what I felt in that particular experience and just broke down. I just broke down. And I don't do that. So I have an exceptional ability to disassociate. My partners will tell you, I went through a divorce. I was married for 15 years. In the beginning of MindPump, with 2 kids, I went through a divorce. And I'd come into work and, I mean, devastated, turn on the mics and the camera, and Sal's on. And I remember my partner's like, I don't know how you do that. Like, how do you just turn it on? I don't know. Well, it turns out I can disassociate really well. Not necessarily a good thing, but I used it for good, I guess. But so I felt and I cried. I don't cry. Like, it's, my grandfather passed away. Another person very close to me passed away years ago. And I remember trying to cry, couldn't, nothing would come out. I remember thinking, what's wrong with me? And I remember I sat there with the EMDR. I had this memory and just broke down. I was like, what are you doing to me? And I remember talking to my therapist. I'm embarrassed. Like, what's going on here? Are you like, am I going to be the same guy afterwards? And so that was my experience with EMDR. And then I took it a step further, did ketamine therapy, which is
how was that?
Wild. Ketamine's wild. I don't know how. By the way, I know people do it recreationally, which I don't understand. I don't have a pleasant. Doesn't necessarily feel euphoric for me or anything like that. But I think what it does what EMDR does in the sense that it allows your brain to go places that your brain normally tries to protect you from. You just can't get through. I just can't get to that memory or that thought or that feeling because my brain and my body it's just not letting me. So the first time I did EMDR, I talked about my grandfather and my ex-mother-in-law who I grew up with. She was like another mother to me, and she got cancer at a young age, and I saw her, die over the course of a year. I remember when she passed away too. I was at her hospital bed, and I remember I physically could not cry. I was trying to, and I just couldn't let it out. Same thing with my grandfather. He passed away. I cried in my dreams. What would happen? I'd dream about them dying, and I'd cry. But then I'd wake up, and just nothing would happen. And the first time I did EMDR. I don't know where I was going to go, and their images popped up, and it all came out. All the processing, everything came out. So that was my first experience, and then all the shit that I held from that came out. Now there was an adjustment period. I'm gonna be honest with you. If anybody tries ketamine, it's not like, oh, you're good. It was some weeks of processing that had to happen afterwards, where I felt feelings, and I didn't know how to deal with them. So I was like tearful and emotional and like, holy cow. And I remember talking to my wife, like, I'm on my way to work and I just like want to cry. Like, what's going on? And my therapist is like, hey, well, you got to readjust. You got to readjust to, and I'm much more attuned now to how I feel. And since then I've done about 8 sessions of ketamine. My wife's done it as well. And for her, it was far more profound. There's a period of her life that she can't really remember, which I'm sure you guys know this, but if when you go through trauma as a kid, oftentimes it's the way your body and brain protect you. You just don't remember it. It's like she can't remember from this age to this age. Through ketamine, memories were coming back. And they were random memories. Like, God, I remember at a picnic table, and then I remember I was doing this. She's like, I don't know what value this has. Is this really doing anything for me? By her 6th session, it was like she was leading up to really remembering certain things, and it just came out and released it. And it's been phenomenal. So I think it's a profound tool that therapists can use. I hope it at some point becomes something that's covered by insurance and affordable, because at the moment it's a bit out of reach for a lot of people.
You are starting to see it in some of the treatments. I know it's hot in here. Sorry.
No worries.
You are starting to see it in substance abuse treatment. Some centers are doing it. Here's like, and I just want to say this, that ketamine, I think I'm very open to alternative type approaches. We personally do abstinence based, no mood or mind altering substances, because our belief is that like it's the risk versus reward for you. It's
totally understand.
Not worth it.
Yeah. I don't necessarily, I agree. I think if you have a substance abuse issue, using substances to get out of it, it's like, it might be a little bit of it's a bit of a risk you might not want to take.
Yeah. I used ketamine in a warehouse watching the spacemen in Boynton Beach.
So I don't think that'd be a good idea.
But
I'm not closed-minded to alternative medicine either.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even pot, like, I'm totally for the legalization, recreational. Like, I just can't do it.
So that's good stuff.
It's an interesting thing, because you do see a lot, especially in California.
Yeah.
The marijuana maintenance programs, and you had a lot of these celebrities that were really endorsing marijuana maintenance, and like, hey, as long as I'm not shooting dope, I can smoke a little bit of pot and everything's going to be okay. And I can honestly tell you, out of working at this point between Ben and I, thousands of people, I don't know of anybody that was able to put down dope or crack or cocaine or this or that and pick up pot and just be able to smoke pot. It has always led back to their main drug of choice.
You're not dealing with the root.
Right, exactly.
You're not dealing with the root issue. More recently, and I hope you don't mind if I go in this direction, but I've been on a very deep spiritual journey, and nothing has, and this is a very short period. It's been a long road, but it's been a short, intense period more recently. I'd say only maybe about 3 months. Nothing's been more profound in transforming me than that. And I was asked recently by people close to me, why do you think that is? And part of it, I think, is a supernatural. I do believe that there is a spirit that's working with me. But the other part of it is, and I'd love your guys' opinion on this, one thing that got in my way a lot was shame. It really got in my way. And I used to see this with people with diet all the time. It's like, oh, I messed up on my diet. Yes, you did. I'm a bad person. No, you're not a bad person. Yes, you went off your diet. You ate something maybe it wasn't good for you, but you're not a bad person. That shame is exactly what you're trying to distract or avoid with the food that you're eating. Or in my case, shame I would run away from, avoid, or not deal with, or beat myself up to the point where I'm not even gonna grow. I'm not even gonna change. I'm not gonna look at the things that are so shameful that they're gonna hurt me so bad. And through the spiritual journey, for me, feeling God's grace, I was able to reflect it on myself, able to look back and feel compassion, which I used to think would take you off the hook. So I always thought like, oh yeah, you feel bad for yourself, off the hook. You were an asshole. That's what you were. No, it's not like that at all. Looking back, I looked at myself and some of my actions, and I was like, that wasn't good. You definitely fucked up. But man, you were trying your best. That was tough. Let's keep moving forward. Very different. I could let go of some of that shame. Now I could grow. Now I can really move forward. I'm starting to let go of the things that I wanted to hold on to so tightly. So,
Ben, I'll let you chime in on this one, the spirituality.
Yeah, tying it into the shame to like continue on that, like, and ironically, when's that episode coming out that I just did? The trauma one?
Today.
It's coming out today. So for the first time ever, I actually publicly like decided to disclose. You talked about little T, big T trauma earlier. I had some pretty severe sexual trauma at a young age, and I decided like, hey, I'm holding on to a solution. I might as well go ahead and share it. It would be selfish for me not to, and how I've gotten through it, and how I've found purpose through my trauma, things along those lines. But going back to the shame thing, like because of what happened to me, I had so much shame that I had zero self-worth. And it just kind of compounded where since I have no self-worth, I'm doing things that are injuring myself, so to speak, even worse, and it's just this compounding factor. But finally realizing, like tying it to the spiritual journey part, I wouldn't change anything today.
Yeah.
Because going back to what you said earlier about with communicating with people, today, you know how many people, like through the treatment process, I've been able to connect with on a very spiritual level by sharing my experience. Yeah. And the other parts of that too is I used to like curse God. I'm not a religious man. I'm with you on there's a spirit working within me, among us, whatever. But I used to curse God for being a drug addict. I'm like, man, how could you do this to me, right? How can I can't stop. And I realized today I wouldn't change anything based off the fact that it has brought me to where I'm at today. Specifically, like to give an example, I think it really came together for me in 2019. I don't know how much I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I adopted a little guy named Kai, and because I did the short version without getting crazy into detail is I basically did an intervention, got a guy into treatment. While he was in treatment, his wife overdosed and died. Kai was locked in a trailer with her dead body for over 12 hours. Oh. And so this guy calls me from the treatment center he's at. I go pick him up, drive him up to Daytona, and through a series of events, DCF, Department of Children and Families, didn't know what to do with Kai. So they like literally released him to me. It was the strangest thing. And all of a sudden, like I show up at home to my wife, Whitney, and I'm like, here's Kai. I was like bringing a puppy home. She's like, what the hell is going on here? But, actually March 31st was his 6th birthday. So it just passed, but it was Easter and our 2-year anniversary of having officially adopted him all in one day. But where I'm going with this is like, if I wasn't a junkie, I would have never been in that position. Yeah. And now I've got this kid in my life who it just brings so much purpose. And like, I can look back now and say like, and I'm a guy, and I've shared openly about this too. My wife and I, we lost custody of our kid twice because of our active addiction, and so it just the way everything comes full circle. And if you just hang in there long enough, it'll all make sense later. It might be painful at the time. You were talking about pain earlier. Pain is the key to spiritual growth, is what we tell people in recovery. And like behind every strong person's a story, right? Where they had to be strong. And like the spiritual aspect, I kind of joke about it too when it comes to substances where I'll ask our clients, this is a spiritual solution, I'll tell them, because it is. And they're like, I don't want anything to do with that. Right. I'm like, were you not just dropping LSD 2 weeks ago trying to connect spiritually? Yeah. And they're like scratching their head. I guess so.
Yeah, well, from a scientific standpoint, the scientists will even say this objectively, that we were made to worship, okay? And we are value-based creatures, meaning every choice we make is based off of something we feel is more valuable than the other choices. Through action, you worship, okay? So you can either choose to worship something intentionally or unintentionally, and it typically is, and Thomas Aquinas very accurately labeled them as either power, honor, pleasure, power, honor, pleasure, or I can't remember what the last one was, but you're basically worshiping things of this world. Oftentimes, drug addicts are worshiping pleasure, right? They want to feel good. That becomes their God. Now, I'm a Christian now, and what is taught is that you were made to turn towards God, and if you turn away, you will try to fill that with something other than God, and you will feel thirsty. You will never get what you think you're going to get because it is less than. So you want money? That's what it was. Money was the other one. You want money? Go after it, and you'll never get satisfied. You want pleasure? Go after it. You'll never be satisfied. Power? You'll never be satisfied. Honor, which now we could call fame, you'll never be satisfied because it's trying to fill something that is meant to be filled with God. So, and then when I talk about the spirit, and again, this is just my own, personal experience. When I talk about God's grace, what I learn, this is weird, This is weird now. So if you're not in this space and it sounds weird, bear with me. By the way, the data will support what I'm saying.
We like
if you're
weird.
data driven. But I tell you what, I never fully understood the Christian faith, which said that you are saved by grace alone. I always thought, how does that make any sense? So, okay, yeah, I accept Jesus. Now I could go be an asshole, right? So what does that mean? Like, it's not my actions. That's what they tell you. Your actions won't get you closer to God, won't get you into heaven or have eternal life. It's by grace. And I always thought that was crazy. Like, okay, so I could just, hey, I accept Jesus and then go do whatever the hell I want. And it's like, no, here's what happens. You accept him, you accept God's grace, and then within you, the Holy Spirit, that's how they explain it, makes sin less desirable and makes the right thing more desirable. So you actually become driven to do the right thing through this inner feeling, which is exactly what I'm experiencing. You guys want some examples? I'll trip you guys the F out.
Yeah,
I'll trip myself the F out, okay? So there's a few things I've been really praying for in that sense. One of them is lust. I have an issue with lust, okay? I can be a very lustful individual. So I'm like, help me with lust. Like, I don't want to white knuckle this all the time. And so suddenly I moved away from that. I don't want to watch pornography. I turn away from lustful thoughts. I look at my wife differently. And it's not because I'm trying. It's because I want to. It's really freaking weird. Here's the weirdest one. This sounds stupid, but it's really weird. You'll get it because you like to work out. I've been working out for 30 years, okay? Nothing messes with my workout, with the environment, what I do. Like, you don't mess with it. This is my workout. One of the things that I do with my workouts is a certain kind of music I listen to. And you don't get in the way of my music. Like, I listen to Rage Against the Machine, Sepultura, Anthrax. It's angry. It's like, I'm going to break some shit, okay? And I will not work out to anything else, okay? I might compromise here and there, but for the most part, that's what I'm listening to. This is what's weird. This is the weirdest shit, right? I'm in the gym, and this started maybe 4 weeks ago. I'm in the gym, and I'm working out, and, I'm like, I want to listen to, let me see what Christian rock sounds like. Hokey Christian rock, right? That's what it sounds like, right? It's like way different than Sepultura, Rage Against the Machine. So I start listening to it, and I'm like, that's not bad. All right, it's all right. Go back to my old stuff. Little by little, and I wasn't even aware of what was happening. Little by little, I'm listening to worship music while I'm working out, to the point where, this is, swear to God, this is a true story. 2 weeks ago, I messaged a buddy of mine who's kind of helping me through this journey. He's like coaching me through Scripture, because I've never read the Bible and all that stuff. He's coaching me, and I sent him a message. I'm like, bro, you want to see the playlist that I'm working out to right now? I sent it to him. He starts cracking up. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Never in a million years would I work out to anything other than the stuff I've worked out to for 30 years. And I try to listen to it now, and I don't want to. I'm more drawn to this other stuff. That's just a personal, but it's weird. It's not like I'm not even trying. I'm not thinking to myself, I should listen to Christian rock and not listen to this angry stuff. I want to listen to it. It's really weird, man. And I have more examples of that. I could sit here.
It's so funny you said that, though. So we were talking about EMDR earlier, and I literally just started switching up my music too in the gym. I listen to a lot of like Chevelle, EDM.
Yeah.
Always the same playlist. All the favorites on Spotify. And the therapist, 3 months ago, introduced me to 8D music.
Have you heard of this?
No.
It's super trippy, dude.
So it's bilateral.
Yeah.
Bilateral music. So I ended up going on Spotify, looking all this up, and it's meditation music, but it's trippy.
So different.
So I'm in the gym, I'm like, you know what? I'm sitting in the sauna because that's where I get my warm up in, and it comes on, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to stick to this. And just the meditative sit, because usually I'm trying to be angry in the gym. The typical
I know exactly what that.
But it's been strange. It's like outer body.
Yeah, what's weird is I used to communicate. I communicate this with diet very, very often to people. As I tell people, if you do this the right way, eventually you want to eat healthy. Not that you're trying to make yourself eat healthy, but you actually desire healthy food. And people who've been doing this for a long time, who figured out the right relationship with diet know what I'm talking about. It's not like, oh, you eat so perfect because it's like, no, actually, I actually enjoy eating healthy for the most part. And I'm finding that in lots of areas of my life now through this spiritual journey where I'm starting to feel this type of growth like I could identify through diet and fitness now in other areas. Really, really weird.
So the diet thing I can identify. That's been the hardest thing. I stopped drinking, I stopped drugging, but when it comes to food, it's always been a struggle, still is a struggle. And I just said that to Ben last night because we go to Publix so he can buy freaking boiled freaking turkey and hard-boiled eggs. And I'm just walking out and I'm like, and this is after I just ate a big plate of General Tso's chicken, right?
In front of me.
Yeah, and he got hot tea. I'm like, but I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, and I'm your typical guy that, you know, I've paid so much money for, you know, nutrition coaches and this, and you know, for me and what I'm finding out, and when I tell you a ton of money, I'm talking in the thousands.
Yeah.
It's a deeper issue for me.
Of course.
You know, it's something that I haven't unraveled. I definitely use food as a coping skill or a coping mechanism. I wouldn't even call it a skill, but it's something that I've wrestled with. But aside from that, I want to go back to the Christianity part. I'm a Christian myself, and I totally identify with what you're saying. There's something to be said about the mindset that I'm in when listening to that music. I listen to probably all the same stuff, like Elevation Worship band. If you haven't heard of them, they're phenomenal. You know, Chris Tomlin, you know, a lot. I got tons of playlists that I can share with you.
Okay, I'm new to it, so I don't even know the name. I'm just listening to it.
Have you heard of Hillsong? Dude, this is when I'm telling you I mean, I don't know if you can see it, but
yeah,
like,
you got
you know,
goosebumps.
yeah, it's like it puts you in a completely different like space. And I had no intentions on going the spiritual way component, but like this is something for me that I can identify with so deeply because, you know, it was when I got sober, I was always a Christian. You know, my grandma would take me into church and all I associated with was going and, you know, 80-year-old women coming and pinching my cheeks, telling me how cute I am. And, you know, right before I got sober, I got baptized, and that was simply because I thought I was going to die. I was like, I'm 26 years old. I'm definitely knocking on death's door. I better get baptized. Otherwise I'm going to hell. That was my relationship. Right. But when I came to West Palm Beach and I walked into this church called Christ Fellowship, and I walked in there, it was like unbelievable. The worship and everything. And I felt the power of God there. And I'm like, this is freaking weird.
Yeah.
You know,
that's the right word.
Weird is the best way to describe it.
Yep.
And I slowly kept coming back, you know, and I started to understand more that it was less about the religion aspect and it was everything to do with the relationship that I had with God. Everything prior to was rules and regulations.
Right.
Now has nothing to do with that and everything to do with God, I'm going to look to you for everything.
But it's the same thing as it's not about your diet plan as much as it is your relationship to food. You have the right relationship to food, the diet plan takes care of itself. If you just follow a diet plan, you're going to constantly struggle with this on-off type relationship. So I love fitness so much. I can take fitness and I can communicate it to most people. But if you took it and you really stretch it out, it really represents a lot of different things. So it's the same thing. So yeah, religion is the diet plan, but without the relationship, it's on and off, man. Yeah, follow the rules, don't follow the rules. It's not really working.
And people in sobriety, and we'll wrap this up soon. People in sobriety, we often say, because there's a couple sayings. One, there's a slip under every skirt, right? So most guys, you know, and girls, obviously, there's two things that cause people to go off the deep end: money and sex. Those are generally speaking, right, Ben? I
agree.
I would say that's it. There's a slip under every skirt. And essentially what we tell people when we're working with them is you're filling a God-sized hole.
Yeah.
With something external. You know, you're trying to fix an internal problem with an external solution, and it doesn't work. And the whole premise behind the 12 steps, and there's many ways to get sober. It just so happens 12 step is what we've done. We practice over many years at this point. It is simply understanding that I am not God, that there is a God. I'm not it. I got to stop playing God.
You know, I'm going to read you my screensaver. So you guys can see it right here. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And the reason why I put that there for myself was I know I'm a smart fella. Okay, I know that.
Yeah.
But that can be my weakness because I think I know everything.
Yeah.
I got this figured out. I could do this. And the truth is, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And no, I can't do this, you know. I definitely need help. Doing that's been very profound for me.
Well, it's like we say to people too, like the whole 12-step stuff, it's a simple program for complicated people.
Yeah.
You know,
Great.
we're not reinventing the wheel here. This has been around, you know, AA's been around since 1935. You know, and it started with the 6 tenets before that, which was from the Oxford group. So it dates way before that, you know, and it was a core Christian group of people. If you look at the 12 steps, you see a direct correlation to the Bible. Now, all of my non-Christian folk will start sending hate mail, but that's just the reality of it, you know. I can't remember where I was going with that, but
well, I tell you what, here's what got me there. You don't have to, don't worry about believing in the metaphysical and the spiritual. And I say that honestly, don't worry about that. Just look at the wisdom that has created some of the most successful societies the world's ever known, because we're all based on that. What got me there was this simple thing right here, the concept of liberty, right? Of freedom. We take it for granted. Oh yeah, of course everybody should be treated a particular way. Of course we should protect people's liberties. That is the most unnatural philosophy you could possibly imagine. If society didn't exist and then humans just came up right now, nobody would invent that concept. We should all be protected. No, I'm bigger than you. I take what I want. He's smarter. She's more beautiful. Like there is no equal liberties. Who the hell came up with that? It came from the Judeo-Christian religion. So whether you believe in the spiritual or the metaphysical aspect, there's some wisdom in there. So you don't have to believe in that yet. And I'm not even going to say that you will. Don't worry about that. There is wisdom there. And that's why the 12 steps, I think, taps into the wisdom found in this particular practice. So you don't have to be religious. You don't have to be spiritual. Just say open-minded. You know, there's some wisdom here. Let me see what's going on. Let me look at this wisdom and then see where that takes you.
Yeah. Whew. This was fun.
Dude, yeah, I've really enjoyed this conversation. To be straightforward, like I knew this would all correlate, but like I'm just blown away. Like to be straightforward, you are very well versed on so much beyond fitness. Like the way that you tie it in, but the thing that I'll speak for Tom on this because I know it's true, but like we both look up to you.
I appreciate that.
And to hear everything that you're sharing, like, and being vulnerable about like having a therapist, you know, the little T trauma stuff and your journey and the struggle. You've mentioned some of the stuff that you struggle with. Like for me, sitting here with somebody that I look up to, it's like he struggles too, you know, but I'm hearing all the spiritual principles you live by and the way that you love and care for other people and you want healthy relationships. It tells me like, maybe I'm on the right path, you know? And some of the stuff you said today, like, really, like, thudded me in the chest. I'm like, oh, man, I felt that one. Because, you know, you were talking about earlier, like, some of the behavior, like some of my recent behaviors, you know? In sobriety, you know, they're just saying we are not saints. You know, we're trying to do our best to live a spiritual life, but, man, do I fall short a lot of the time. But, like, to just know that, like, again, someone we look up to has those same struggles, but listening to the tools that you utilize. Like, this has been very helpful for me, if I'm straightforward.
I appreciate that.
Like,
Thanks for letting me. Thanks for allowing me to express some of the stuff. I don't necessarily bring a lot of this up on the podcast, on my show, so I appreciate the platform.
Well, and I consider that an absolute honor that you'd be willing, because I mean, Ben jokes, I'm like a Mind Pump fanboy. So I know, I told Ben, I'm like, there's certain things, like we're going to talk about EMDR, but he's not going to talk about specifics around it and yada, yada, yada. But the fact that you were willing to come on here and open up like you did, I mean, it just shows it. At least I think, like, you know, there was a level of trust that was developed here. Yeah. And I think that, you know, everything.
You guys are doing good stuff, man.
Yeah, as are you guys. I mean, it's phenomenal what you guys are doing. So let me ask this last question. A lot of our listeners, you kind of got two camps. You got people that are new in recovery, and then you got like, well, you know, I'd say in the first couple years of sobriety, I suppose. And then you got a lot of family members and loved ones and stuff like that. MAPS programs, do a quick description of what these are and like where somebody would start, because I talk about it a lot on the podcast, and I got a message from a guy. I think I shared this when we did the live call. He's like, congratulations, you went 3 episodes without talking about MindPump. So where could somebody like start off with the MAPS programs and stuff like that?
Yeah, a great place to start with strength training is MAPS Starter. So we named it that. And then next would probably be MAPS Anabolic. But each program, it has a kind of a character or an avatar in mind. So like the athlete, the bodybuilder, the person who likes to do kind of different kinds of lifts and exercises, who enjoys doing weird things in the gym.
Old timer.
Yeah, old time strength. So we create programs. Well, the main reason that we create so many different programs is because we want to give people enough programs to where they can always enjoy working out. They can always try something different, and we can fill the gaps where other programs fail. Because no workout program, I mean, from a training perspective, is perfect. Every program is going to have some holes, and if you follow the same program too long, then you start to suffer from some of those inadequacies. So that's the idea. But MAPS Starter, that's if you're starting with strength training, MAPS Starter, and then next we've been MAPS Anabolic.
And if you're somebody that's going to be coming into the off season of a bodybuilding show, then what?
Off season, take some time off, and then probably get MAPS Aesthetic or Split. Probably be good. Someone like yourself who's
right on,
can take a lot of volume.
And then I do want to say this, obviously, as far as Mind Pump goes, you guys release what, 4 episodes or 5 a week?
5. And
there's opportunities for people to call in.
Yep.
And do you want to talk about that for just a second?
You can email us at live@mindpumpmedia.com, and then we'll help you out on air. We'll coach you on air.
That's awesome. All right. Well, any final thoughts?
No, dude, I'm blown away. This was a lot of fun.
Appreciate it, gentlemen.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Sal. All right, that is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. And I didn't forget, Ben, please join our Facebook support group, Real Recovery Talk support group. Go on Facebook. You can join us there, and we'll talk and have banter and just have fun. That is it. We will see y'all later.